you've traveled a lot, haven't you? Like, how does, I don't quite know what this question is, but I've also traveled a lot. I love to travel, but haven't recently, of course. This is the longest I've been in one place. There's been benefits to that. How does travel and breath, what's the connection there for you? Is it just seeing different cultures, keeping it kind of, keeps it kind of loose, doesn't it, travel? It keeps the things getting stagnant. What's your attitude on this?
Do you remember that film Jamie did, One Giant Leap? Did you ever see
Loved
that?
it.
Yeah.
Saw that trip.
And there's that, yeah. And on the album, there's that great little talking bit. I think Michael Stipe has just finished singing or something, and he's talking to people who'd been dying, who were in the last days of their life, and what were the most important things to you. And I remember very clearly one of them being that I didn't travel enough. I didn't love enough. I worked too hard, and I didn't travel enough. And I think that's been instilled in me by my mother. Really, she was a traveler, and I just thought I've just got to see every country that I possibly can. And in view of the way things are right now, I'm glad I did.
Yeah, well, I wondered a few years back, I thought to myself, well, for environmental reasons, this might not become possible. Or, I would actually support a tax on air flight for environmental reasons, even if it would mean that I would travel a lot less myself because there's a greater good there. And I thought, well, maybe the economics of it just changes because, flights are very cheap around Europe, for example. And I just made it kind of like, what, actually, I do want to see the world. And, I said to my wife, I said, we don't have kids. We're both physically well. I said, that might not last forever. Let's go to Australia. Let's go to Japan. Let's take some long, some real trips. And we spent 2 months traveling together. And we'll probably do that again next year for a month or two. And just that sort of precious time exploring with someone I love that, you don't get that back. I'm not going to be an old man going, I wish I'd sent more emails, but I might go, I wish I'd sent, what I mean? Like, I would always I went to New Zealand and I was like, I've always wanted to go here. In Japan, I went to an aikido dojo and I was like, there's something in this. And that's, even though it's inconvenient and uncomfortable and expensive, is still like it has value to me.
Well, I think there's also, there's very little distinction I'm finding, especially now, between going for a walk down the Cornish coast or taking a flight to another culture. It's not traveling. We're getting to reinterpret what it means. I think I saw that Aer Lingus had to ground planes because they weren't social distancing people on the plane. It's not going to be viable to fly the way that we used to fly if people are still intimidated by this thing that's happening. We're going to get to look at what traveling means. Is it worthwhile looking in a square meter of grass and counting how many spiders there are, or do I need to cover miles of territory to learn something else?
I've definitely been enjoying being at home more and reacquainting myself. I found an alley I hadn't walked down the other day, despite having lived in this town for 15 years, and it was no more than a kilometre from my house. And it's little adventures like that. It was, let's go down here. I was with my wife. What's down here? But we have been living in a slightly mad time of, people running around the world and going to Bali and not in the sort of hippie fantasy of Bali and Goa and Thailand and not knowing our neighbours. It's all been a bit surreal, hasn't it? I knew it didn't ever feel sustainable. It didn't ever feel normal to me. I just went, this won't last. And for better and for worse, right? Part of me was like, right, enjoy it while I can. And part of me was like, when are we going to get back to a more sustainable culture than this?
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that 16 square meters of ice melts for one business class ticket from London to San Francisco. And that kind of helps it sink in a bit. Like, actually, we can be more responsible than we are. We can do
right. There's a few levels of it, isn't there, in terms of the impact of the environment. I think will be probably known for our listeners. The one that's been hitting me is the impact of local community on just not being at home. That like how is it to know your neighbours? How is it to rely upon your neighbours? How is it to be genuinely in community? Yeah. And you see this like attempts to do this, people go to a festival and they call it community, but there's no real commitment there. It's not the same as being in a village. I'm really wondering what community 2.0 looks like, not necessarily the Findhorns or the sort of unusual special places, which are great, and I'm glad people are brave to do those experiments, but what does community look like for most people in the normal world, can we reinvent that in a way that has the best of the 50s, but, you know, not with the sort of awful neighbors gossiping and knowing in your business and sort of, you know, everything that comes with somebody who grew up in a village, you know. So I'm curious about that right now.
Yeah, I think I think it's going to shift. You know, we're involved in a community in Italy, and we're watching how the nature of people's interest is evolving right now. We're getting people, a much larger proportion of people from cities that are going, okay, that's enough. Now I've learnt my lesson. I think I would just want to reconnect with the land again, keep it more ABC rather than, you know, keep it less complex. So I think there is a tendency to want to reinvent community right now. And at the same time, the paradox is that everything's going wild on the internet too, like your community and my community. And
right, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
You do tasters online as well, Daniel. I was hoping to get to one of those at the weekend to have a bit more of a experiential sense of it. It says a reinterpretation of what community is. Was that what you were just saying there? That it's like, on the one hand, it's more local because we're not traveling, but on the other hand, it's more international because everybody, you know, the numbers we're hitting with the conference are just absurd. Like just that 100, you know, we're expecting, I think the conservative estimate now is 300,000. Yeah, and that's it's just crazy that can happen. And we do these days, we're doing this breathwork day where, you know, we all of a sudden have, you know, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people just turn up just for a day event, you know. It's just insane. So I'm still getting my head around what this means, you know, and simultaneously I've talked more to my neighbors in the last 2 months than I have the last 2 years, I think, you know, physically live in my building. So we've had reasons to, you know, there's been a sense that we might need each other now. And I'm not just going to bugger off to Moscow on another business trip in 2 days. So who cares, you know?
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I really feel there's that there's the potential of intimacy coming back again, and community care.
That's one of your areas, right? You work with intimacy as well as breathwork, I believe, Anthony.
Yeah, I do work with intimacy. Yeah. Uh-huh. I've been doing breathwork on the internet since I don't know, since 2014 or something. Uh-huh. And you spoke about the safety of people earlier on, and how do you if you did a breathwork day with thousands of people, you know these people need to be cared for no matter where they are, if they're on a screen or in front of you.
Yeah, that is definitely one thing I've been considering is safety stuff. I'm launching a course tonight with 200 participants it's a 3-month course, and it's been great for business, and I'm great that we can, simultaneously made me more money and been cheaper for people than our face-to-face courses. So I'm kind of, okay, everyone wins, but in terms of supervision level, it's not the same as seeing 20 people in the room and saying, so Susan at the back there looks a bit upset. Next time she goes to the toilet, can you just see if she's okay?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not the same as that, is it? So that is a concern for me. And there's definitely techniques I'm not teaching because I won't be able to supervise with my students I work with over a year, we can really get the ethics and the safety stuff really pinned down. And I just can't guarantee it. Someone can click the little thing saying they've watched the video and they haven't really. It's different from seeing people do it and go, right, I can see you're not doing that right. So look, this is what you need to learn for me to give you the certificate, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do believe, but there is a way to encourage people to do deep inner work and reflection and keep it safe on screen. It's just different. It's different than real, in a room, you can also feel the general mood and the resonance of the combination of people and all of those things. But on screen, you still can, but it's just a little different. Now I'm finding, because our groups are getting bigger than 1,000, that we're starting to use a webinar format. And that's another whole level of taking care of people, because it's like you're more on television and you've got to reach out there and make sure that they feel held. And you can't, you can see a chat box, but it's like ticker tape. It's like flying so fast that you can't read anything. So
it's just knowing that it's different, isn't it? Rather than saying, going, okay, so if I've got 10 people online, it's like this. It's not like in person, it's different this way. If I've got 100, it's like this. Like we have, I have 2 or 3 members of staff working for me tonight. So when there'll be chat, they'll be able to read all the comments. right? Well, I'm teaching, and they'll give me greatest hits if I've missed anything, and they'll send me a little red direct message saying, hey, you might want to, check on that. There's things we do like that. We have coaches now who come in and do groups of 5 people to, after the big seminars, they can kind of check in and answer any questions. It's about developing skillful means, which is what teaching has always been about, isn't it? I mean, in some ways, nothing's really changed. It's just different skillful means,
I think so, but it's also kind of puncturing new possibilities and methods and delivery systems, and that's the fun to me. Is that being a pioneer is a lot of fun. There's a lot of juice in that for me, and also I'm sure for you, it's like your own studies and your own processes and your own learnings need to stay happening, otherwise you get stale.
Constantly, every day, I'm working my way through 2 online courses at the moment while writing my own book and doing all the normal things I do. Just every day, even if I just watch half an hour of Christopher Wallace or half an hour of Max Strong, I go, okay, I've learned something. I've tried a new thing. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, I'm very lucky if I have access to, I can text them afterwards and ask some questions. But it's for me, keeping learning like that is the only thing that keeps my own teaching fresh.